Jajamän, jag har all tid i världen att köra live. Jag är sjukpensionär, jag har tid att köra live hur mycket jag vill. 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing, testing. Tack för en smörflöja. Good for you.
happy that you still believe that there is some Trump administration, because so far with these people appointed to be part of the Trump administration, I don't know if you saw Mike Waltz talking about his meeting with Jake Sullivan. He said that I'm totally agreeing with him on what's going on in Ukraine. And the new appointment, they're totally against Russia. And the way that they're talking, even is not polite, is not, it seems that they're so, I don't know how is it going to influence Russia's views on the next administration, on the Trump administration?
Well, you're looking at a statesman in Putin, and I'll say that again, a statesman with sang-froid that I've never seen in a major statesman of that stature. He knows that the empire that the U.S. has built is crumbling, okay? He sees it in overextension on the part of the U.S. He tried to warn. You know, people forget that in 2013, Putin helped bail Obama out when everyone was screaming for Obama to shoot Tomahawk missiles on Syria, right? He gave him a way out. He said, look, we persuaded the Syrians to destroy the chemical weapons under UN supervision and so forth. Obama said, really? And Putin said, yes. There was Putin writing an op-ed in the New York Times. It's worth just repeating that he cited this as a hopeful time where trust had existed, so that enabled this agreement and prevented a war on Syria. And he talked about trust not only between our two nations, Russia and the U.S., but between our two presidents, me, Vladimir Putin, and Obama. Now, he spoke eloquently about that in an op-ed in the New York Times, September 12th, 2013. Look it up. It's still there. I verified that. Now, what he finished saying is, look, the only thing that I object to, and the only thing that can be a corrosive influence on this, is this notion that there are exceptional countries in the world. Now, President Obama, says Putin, just said that last week in a major speech. I disagree. I don't think there are exceptional countries. I think they're good and bad. They're small and big. There's people closer to democracy and people farther away. But when God looks down at all nations of the world, he sees them as equal, period, end quote. New York Times, okay? That was the acme of trust between the U.S. and a Russian president. What happened? 6 months later, the neocons, in the person of Victoria Nuland and others of her stripe, created a coup in Kiev, Ukraine, and things went down real quick. So, now that was still under Obama. Did he know they were doing that? I suppose maybe he did, or maybe they didn't tell him to give him plausible denial. But they did it, right? And that was a threat to Russia. They knew it was a threat to Russia. I don't know what they expected Russia to do. But Putin decided, well, this is equivalent to my predecessor Khrushchev putting missiles in Cuba. The U.S. can put missiles in Ukraine as well as in Poland and Romania. So I'm going to have to react strongly. Now, Nima, there's one thing that I tend to point out that a few others do, and that is China. How does China fit in, you know? Well, short story is that China and Russia are joined at the hip now in a way they never have been before. But the more immediate story is that China acquiesced in Russia going into Ukraine. That is very clear to me from lots of reasons, but especially from Chinese rhetoric, you know. They changed from Westphalia, the Treaty of Westphalia, 1648, that's not bedrock principle. They changed from that to weigh each situation on its own merits. Major countries have core interests, and we think they're justified in pursuing their core interests. Whoa, that's not Westphalia. So they gave Putin a waiver on Westphalia, you could put it that way. So what are the Chinese going to do now? That's what I like to bring up. I've been asking my Chinese specialist advisors. They don't know, but they're very reluctant to think that the Chinese would do anything to be provocative in East Asia. I'm not so sure. What I think is that China could stir up the kind of trouble that would enable the U.S. military to say, "Oh my God, Putin's got this damn new weapon. It's equivalent to a nuclear weapon, but it can be used because it doesn't have any bullet." And now China is ramming our ships in the South China Sea, and they're flying real close to Taiwan. You know, are we gonna, Mr. President? You wanted to get us into a two-front war when we're sorry, but we're not ready. Okay, we're building F-35s. They don't work real well, but you know, at 100 million apiece, we don't have much money to. So, do you want to get into a two-front war? So, what I'm saying here, 100 million apiece, is that China has a role to play. So, I think the push comes to shove, that Putin would go to sea, as he did on the 4th of February, 2022 in Beijing. They were opening the Winter Olympics, and say, Comrade Xi, these people still aren't listening. I can't understand why they won't listen now that we've made a demonstration of what we can do with our technology. Now that we've exposed the lie that we, Russia, are a gas station posing as a country, a gas station with this kind of ethnic missile, but they won't listen. So look, we don't want things to blow up in Europe. We don't trust Blinken and Sullivan, who are in charge now. Would you please ram one of the U.S. ships, or at least come so close that they'll really get a scare in them out there in the South China Sea? I think that's entirely possible, and I fortify that by my experience back in February of 2022, when, contrary to all expectations, China acquiesced at best and then explained away Putin's gross violation of the Treaty of Westphalia.
Ray, do you think that with what we've seen so far from the Trump administration, do you think at the end of the day he's going to be able to prevail over these people, or these people are going to get stronger as time goes by against him?
You know, it's really hard to say. Again, this is domestic politics, and I'm glad that people realize I'm a novice in this. My opinion is probably better than no one else's. You know, it all depends on how strong a person Trump turns out to be. It's really befuddling that he would array his administration with these kinds of characters already. He already confessed to that guy Joe Rogan about 2 months ago that he made a big mistake last time. He appointed people that were nerds or idiots, or not loyal to him, and that's true. Now these guys are loyal to him. So it really depends how he decides to do. Now, he's not bound to what's happened in Ukraine. He's criticized it. His vice president has been speculating about deals that they could get out. Is it going to be a tough slog? Yeah, it really will be, because Putin will insist, no Ukraine in NATO, period, okay? That shouldn't be so hard to deal with, for God's sake, you know? I mean, that was agreed to back in April of 2022 by the...
You don't believe the galaxies are millions of light years away to begin with.
That doesn't matter at all.
It does.
No, it literally doesn't matter at all.
It does.
But why?
Because you're talking about a light attenuating over great distance. Like, you don't even believe in those distances. Like, how do you even
I don't
know?
believe in the medium either. This is a really fascinating conversation, because I was reading a book on
a couple different books on quantum theory and things like this. And what I was told was major shifts in science happen when generations of scientists die.
Yep.
Because they over a lifetime, they develop a view of the world that they are emotionally attached to. And that's not an insult. And it's not to say that they're irrational or angry. It's that they see the world in this one way and they see all these pieces. And it's hard for them to turn around and look at something different. Someone who's young comes in and is navigating the space from a different perspective, and they might notice something. So when the older generation dies, I mean, this literally explains geocentrism and heliocentrism. There's a generational shift, and then people now viewed the universe and it became mainstream conventional that we orbit around the sun. When one generation goes, the new generation believes something totally different.
Well, this is a major part of it that people need to understand. It's the Copernican principle. It's the idea that the Earth doesn't.
That's what the movie's about.
Yeah, that's what the principle is referring to. Yeah, the Earth doesn't occupy a special or unique position. This is like a philosophy. It's that the idea the universe is so huge that it's illogical to think the Earth.
Let me give you a good example of how a scientist can be so biased when he's looking at that so-called evidence. Edwin Hubble, you've heard about him?
Yeah, he has a telescope named him.
Yeah. Famous guy, famous astronomer, one of the most famous. We cover him in the movie, and in 1929, he used the Mount Wilson telescope in California, a 100-inch telescope. I mean, it's as big as this table. You could see galaxies for the first time in human history.
Wow.
So he saw them, but he saw something peculiar in these galaxies. And that was they all had a redshift of the light beams.
What year was this?
1929. Okay, and he wrote a book in 1937 describing all this called the observational, that's the key word, observational approach to cosmology. Okay, what do we see out there? How do we interpret it? Okay, so he sees the redshift of all these galaxies, no blue shifts. How do we, I mean, this looks like the Earth is in the center of the universe. He says
So
it in the
in
book.
every direction, you see a red shift.
Right.
So can you explain redshift?
Yeah. When light travels, it can be disturbed, taken energy from it. And
Being done. I don't dither or wait for a specific time.
Okay, just curious, because yeah, we of course broadcast 2100 Kyiv time every Sunday, or when this interview started for our audience. So yeah, thanks again to Jake, and we'll go ahead and close it out there. Slava Ukraine.
Thanks, guys. Glory to the heroes.
Slava.
Roger Lear, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you again, Art, all the way from the Philippines.
Yes, indeed. Let's see, when did we do our last program? It's been a while, hasn't it?
Oh, gosh, it has. Yes, I've done, I think, a couple with George in your absence. But you were so kind to me to make the wonderful statement that you did about the Brazil case when I wrote the book UFO Crash in Brazil.
Yes.
Published on the back of the book. A lot of good comments on that.
No? Oh, well, good. Good. Through all this, are you still actively practicing medicine?
Unfortunately, yes. I have a daughter that's 15. So we have to continue to crank in the bucks so I can pay for her times now and in the future.
Well, I see. Okay, so you spend, is it like a 5-day-a-week deal for you or more?
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, off on Wednesday and weekends, but the mere fact of being off doesn't really mean much because between the research, the implant surgeries, other investigations in the UFO field, and occasional time spent trying to restore an old 1948 Dodge, I keep pretty busy.
That's a lot on anybody's platter, and so it's a wonder that you find any time at all to do research. In fact, I'd kind of be interested. Remind me, if we never talked about this, what in the world got you started in ufology? After all, you're a podiatrist, right?
That's correct.
So it's a long, long way from the foot to, the object in the sky or the implant in the ear.
A long way to Tipperary, exactly. Most of my things in my life have been sort of one synchronicity upon the other. Years ago, when I was quite young, maybe 11 or 12, I have a distinct recollection of my father bringing the San Francisco Examiner into the kitchen and reading the headline to my mother that said, U.S. Army Air Force captures flying saucer. And then he went on a long dissertation about how, see, I told you, we can't be the only intelligent living beings in this vast universe. And I stood there listening to it, nothing, do 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 it. Well, I remember it was the San Francisco Examiner. Well, quite simple, because it was the only paper that he ever took, and I loved the comics. So that's how.
Boy, that was some headline. Say it again. U.S. Army?
U.S. Army Air Force captures flying saucer.
And that stood for how long until it became sort of a little piece of aluminum?
Well, it was only about a day. And
still, that must have been some one day. I mean, for one day, the major papers across the United States virtually said that we had a spaceship.
Right. Not only in the United States, but around the world.
Well, around the world. So I wonder what that day was like when people genuinely, for at least one day, thought we had captured an alien craft.
Well, you can just imagine. It wasn't, it wasn't a little back page article.
No. It was front page stuff. So what was it like? Can you recall it all?
Well, there was a lot of silence. I mean, I remember the adults talking about it. It was, a major thing in lives at that time. 1947 was kind of a strange time because we had come out of the war.
Right.
The war machine was cranking down. You still couldn't get tires. There was still ration stickers on the windshield. You had to go to a special place even to get the kind of meat that you wanted to. So, the society wasn't, anywhere near like it was now. So people were, I believe, in a state of shock. But my father was a businessman. He was a very simple person. And he had a very simple way of thinking. In other words, if you were a plumber, then everything that there was to know about plumbing, you better know. So when the next, headline came in that it wasn't a saucer, but it was a balloon, he was just really bent out of shape. I mean, he said, "You mean to say," and I remember this too, he told my mother, "Do you mean to say that the U.S. Army Air Force can't tell the difference between a saucer and a balloon?"
Same thing they say today when we talk about that subject.
Exactly. But he put it in very, simple terms.
Sure. But for one day, the world thought that we actually had that, and it sure would be fun to go back and, I don't know, get some kind of take on what people were talking about and what they thought, and whether they were thinking, gee, is this the beginning of an invasion? Are we about to have another war? Or just exactly what people thought? It would be interesting to know. If that happened today, can you imagine if that occurred today?
Oh, gosh, I don't know what to say. If it happened today, I usually, when I give my presentations about the world, I get asked a lot, well, you think if this happened today, Dr. Lear, that people would go run and hide in the hills? And I usually say, well, if it happened in Los Angeles on rush hour, let's say a big giant 3 football-sized craft landed in the middle of the freeway in the rush hour, would there be a panic? And I say, well, yeah, there'd be a panic. People would be on their cell phones calling Caltrans to get it moved so they could get home.
That's probably exactly right. People in LA would just be bent out of shape at the traffic situation.
That would be the extent of the panic. I mean, when you drive down the street and you see bumper stickers of gray aliens on the back of the bumpers, and the kids are running around wearing T-shirts with the typical gray face on it, and the History Channel and the Sci-Fi Channel and Discovery Channel and all the rest of them are continuously broadcasting things about UFOs, UFO documentaries, all sub-subjects of the field, day in and day out. And then you talk to the kids, you know, like my daughter, who has really no particular interest in this subject, but because she looks at it like, hey, the grass is growing on the lawn. I mean, what's the big deal? Oh, well, of course, you know, we can't be the only, you know, living, intelligent creatures in this universe. So
perhaps the next generation doctor really would take it well. I mean, just hardly even blinking.
Oh, yes, I'm sure they will. It's a long cry from Orson Welles.
Well, you've chosen to enter a particularly controversial aspect of ufology, and that is there are people who believe that they have been abducted and that they've been implanted with some sort of device. Actually, you could tell me more about it than I could certainly sit here and make statements. What do most people who believe they have been abducted think that their implant is doing? Is it some sort of monitoring device or what?
Well, if they have any thoughts as to why it's there at all, most of them think it's, yes, it's some kind of monitoring device or controlling device, but that's probably not what it is at all. You know, human logic may not be exactly the same as logic from, let's say, intelligences from elsewhere that may be thousands or millions of years older than we are. So we can only look at things in terms of human logic. And I've had the occasion to be in 42 countries in the last 7 years. Excuse me. And you know, it's not much different. You get a translator and you listen to what they have to say in Egypt or Poland or South America or wherever. The stories are about the same. It's certainly not every individual abductee who has even claim or any knowledge that they might have an implant, but the stories of the abduction situation are relatively the same. I mean,
really, is there almost a generic abduction story? It is interesting that you've been in all those different countries, and they're very similar. If you were to tell a generic story made up from all you've heard, what would the abduction be like?
Someone is taken without their permission. Sometimes there's memory, sometimes there's little memory, sometimes there's no memory. And they're taken someplace where they don't know where they are, and the ones with conscious memories have experiences of, I guess you best put it, as medical experimentation. In the most cases having something to do with ovum or a sperm. And it goes on from there to all the subjects of seeing what they believe are hybrid offspring and descriptions of beings. Sort of universally, it's the gray, but not in every case. Some have memories of, I'm talking about conscious memory, not through regressive hypnosis, but, you know, some see people that look like us, you know, taller, blonde, blue eyes, good looking. Other people see reptoid beings, other people see insectoid beings, and then there's really a myriad of others. looking at things, for example, in the Middle East, where little old ladies on kibbutzes were describing craft coming down with, 8-9 foot tall beings coming out of it and gathering potatoes out of a field. Similar things seen in what was previously the Soviet Union. You don't see that in South America.
Doctor, is there any big difference between what people are able, some of the best people who have good conscious memories of what happened to them, versus those who, for example, went through hypnotic progression? Is there a big difference in what they remember?
Well, hypnotic regression done in the hands of a qualified, experienced hypnotherapist, and there's not many of them around anymore. Certainly John Mack had his share, and we have Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, and fortunately in Southern California we have Yvonne Smith, and then in the other countries there's a few others. But there's not that many people who have the qualifications that these people have. But the hypnotic regression, I believe, only polishes details of the memory. Now, I think if everything is done right and according to what is supposed to happen, you're not supposed to remember anything. You just go through life and you're as happy as a clam. But unfortunately, I think there's been changes in the last maybe 20 or 30 years. People have they develop phobias, and kids are afraid of clowns, and kids will go to a dentist where they're normally not afraid to be examined by a doctor, where they sit in a dental chair, and the minute the nurse brings the light over their face, they freak out. Well, some of these kids have had abduction experiences. So I think regressive hypnosis only polishes what's there somewhere in the conscious memory. Now, I do have someone that I met within the last year who is a very well-known person and very influential, has had an experience, and he has almost total recall of what went on, and he said that he begged them not to erase his memory because he had no fear. And he said he had no fear of them, and he didn't know, why they were doing what they were doing. And he claims that and these were the Greys, that they told him that he was unique, and that they did do experimentations and had a great knowledge about the human anatomy and physiology, and that they weren't going to do anything to him because he was a very unique soul. And the reason he gave him was one of the ones was he absolutely had no fear of them whatsoever. And then there was a few other things. For example, he said, you're one of the few humans that we've ever picked up that was trying to tell us a joke, which we don't understand.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Last week I had a guest on the show, Dr. Lear, who said that people who are normally abducted are given these screen memories. In other words, everything's blocked out, and they're given this sort of we're warm, fuzzy people. You had a wonderful experience. This screen memory that has to be penetrated to get to the real story. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think in some cases that's true. If they feel you're probably a person that might have a memory and then can't get along with it. I hate to say this, especially on the air with a worldwide audience, but I have severe doubts that there's such a thing as the military abduction going on. I've looked into these cases, and what I found is that when someone reports military abductions, there's two things that stand out. Number one, they live very, very close to a military installation. Or number two, the whole family is just filled with people that are in the military. Now, these entities seem to be able to tap into your consciousness, and they know what's believable to you and what's not. So if you believe that you have 30 relatives in your family that are military officers, I think what's acceptable to that particular person is giving them a nice memory that they're underground in some base with generals running around. On the other hand, kids, sometimes they see clowns and owls and animals and things. So, and I think in some cases that's, you know, probably a good scenario, but certainly not in every case. And certainly people like this friend of mine now has become quite a good friend, with, you know, a conscious memory that he has. I mean, it's right down to the nitty gritty. And like I was saying, he was telling him a joke, and he says, well, if you don't understand what I'm telling you, then how could you tell I'm telling you a joke? And he said they told him, because you were laughing.
Is this a name we would know?
No. It's possible I could get him to come on the air if he didn't use his real name, but it wasn't too long ago. He had another event that occurred driving through Death Valley, California, and this one he was with his driver, and they.
All right, hold that story. We're at the bottom of the hour, so hold tight, Dr. Lear, and we'll come right back to Death Valley. That's near home. From Manila in the Philippines, I'm Art Bell. It is indeed, my guest is Dr. Roger Lear. He is a podiatrist. Now, that's a doctor who basically takes care of your feet. That's what he does for a living. But somewhere along the way, he became interested in ufology. And then he became interested in helping people out who thought they had things implanted in them, various places. Then he became interested in surgery to remove these and having them analyzed. In other words, hard proof. And a lot, apparently, of what's been analyzed, or at least some of what's been analyzed, has come back showing that it has properties similar to that of a meteorite, which would mean things not normally found here on Earth. They can do an analysis of material, and if it is not from Earth and it's found inside a human being, at the very least, that has to make you go, So back to Dr. Lear, a story about the Death Valley area. A friend of yours in the Death Valley area, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. He had been traveling through the Death Valley area since he was 16 years of age. He's now 83. And he has a driver. They take a shortcut from Death Valley to go to Tonopah by going through Beatty. Do you know where that cutoff is?
Oh, I absolutely do, yes.
Okay, well, they've gone that route, he told me, hundreds and hundreds of times, and they could have done it backwards, upside down and asleep. Well, this one particular night, they were driving along and looking, for the cutoff, chatting and so on, and they didn't see it. So they kept on going. Finally, they realized, we passed this. But he said to his driver, you haven't seen, Death Valley, Scotty's Castle, and up in that direction, and so on. And I guess, we could go that way. But let's turn around and go back. So they did. Well, they turned around and went back, and they went back and forth about a half a dozen times until they were convinced that maybe the state closed that road for some reason. And he said, well, Dennis, let's just go out the other way, and we come down from the north and go. We'll skip going to Beatty, and we'll just come down into Tonopah. So they had already made up their mind that's what they were going to do, and they're driving along, and in the near distance, they saw an aura of light. And he said to Dennis, he said, my gosh, what are those lights? There's not supposed to be any lights out here. And he said, in a few minutes, they came to a sign that said, Beatty. Both, and I've interviewed them both. They both tell exactly the same story. But as I said, he had a history of this happening, and I introduced him to Bud. And Bud will be in California in December for the Norfolk conference in San Diego, which should be a good one, I should mention. David Jacobs will be there, and Bud Hopkins, and myself, and a few other people. And one of the major topics, of course, is alien abduction. And it'll be in San Diego. I think it's the 2nd and 3rd of December. So I think we're going to get these two together, and he's willing to undergo a hypnotic session and learn more. And Bud talked to him on the phone, and evidently he's had things been going on since childhood. But here's a case of a conscious memory. Nothing fuzzy, just tells it as he remembers it.
Sure. Listen, the website ballyhoos the fact that you had a recent visit to Area 51 during war game exercises. Now, that's incredible. Did you really get to Area 51?
Ooh, that's not warm and fuzzy. I had been to Area 51 numerous times before. Little alien mailbox road.
Oh, that's the area. Well, yeah, the mailbox. Anybody can do that. That's on the highway. But when you say Area 51, I thought, boy, this guy has somehow managed to actually get a tour of and actually gone into Area 51, or what?
No. If I'd have been in Area 51, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
That's what I thought.
They would have erased me, not my memory.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I heard about them having their war games, which they call Red Flag Days.
That's right.
And I thought to myself, if there is something to see, it'll be a good time to fly it. So, they just can't fly it over the Nellis Range or Papoose Lake. They got to fly it somewhere. So maybe we'll see something unusual. And besides, kind of nice to get away. And as you know, the desert is so clear and you can see the sky at night. It's just marvelous. So anyway, we were well outfitted. But when I tell you the story, you'll see how absurd things can be. So we stayed at the little alien.
This was when, please?
This was about 3-4 weeks ago.
Okay, recently.
Yeah, recently. And there was 4 of us, and we drove out there and made a reservation. And we got there late on a Wednesday, and we knew that the temperatures get pretty cold at night, so we brought a lot of gear and gloves and thermoses so we could put hot chocolate and withstand the cold. And we staked out our little road off the extraterrestrial highway, sort of in the boonies there. And as you know, there's not much traffic there to begin with.
Right.
Interestingly enough, there were 3 Belgian pilots that were staying there also.
Really?
And they were going to fly the following week. And when they were not flying, they weren't on the base, so they didn't require them to stay there. But they were in constant communication with the satellite phones that they had. So we had some interesting conversations with them. Also spoke very good English. But we went out the first night, as I said, with all the gear, and we decided where we were going to go. So we went off on this dirt road, and we got our chairs, and we watched the war games going on at night, which was quite interesting because the jets, the F-16s, fly in formation, and they do various, aerial maneuvers, and you can see, them strobing, and the afterburners are on constantly. I mean, they're just zipping all over the sky, and they're dropping flares, and all this, stuff is going on. But we didn't see anything other than that. The next day, you can't really see much during the day, but evidently they drop bombs. And when you feel one of these things go off, it's like something I never felt before. I was in the Army, but I never felt anything like this. It was a double shock wave, a lot like what you experience when you hear the shuttle come in.
Right.
But it reverberates in the ground. I mean, it just shakes you to pieces. So I don't know, what kind of a bomb they're dropping. But that was kind of interesting. And as I said, you can, when the air temperature at altitude is cold enough, and I don't know whether you knew this or not, but when I quit flying, I had about 2,700 hours of air time. And they have to be at a certain altitude to get a contrail because the air is cold.
That's right.
So, you were able to see some of that, but you didn't see a great deal of anything. The following night, we said, okay, we're going to get out there before dark, and we'll, get to where we were going, and so on. And we got, for whatever the reason, a kind of a late start. We were chatting and so on. So it was already dark, and we were driving down this lonely road. And here's where it goes bananas. Around my neck is my binoculars, a real nice set of binoculars. And my lap is a Sony video cam with night shot equipment.
I was going to ask if you took any night vision stuff.
Yeah, well, I had the camera, and it's there, ready to go, sitting on my lap, driving along, and I was sitting in the back, and two other people, one driving in the front, and the fellow that's driving, as we're cruising down this dirt road, says, "Oh, look, there's a light on that hill." And I said, "Oh, where?" So we look, and yeah, there's a light on a hill, which wasn't there before. And then we slowed down a little bit, and there was 2 lights. And then there was 3 lights. And then 4 lights. And then 5. And then 6. And then pretty soon, the lights, you could see were going around in a circle counterclockwise.
Wow.
So I said, wow. And I pick up the video camera, and by the time it's so dark that when you turn on the viewfinder, it about blinds you. And by the time I got the viewfinder, to look at the light, it was already going back down where it came. Now, if we had had a lick of sense, which we didn't, not at all, official UFO, investigators.
Yeah.
Camera in the lap, binoculars. We should have just stopped, turned off the light,
Of course.
and taken some pictures. But no, we had to get
I don't
closer,
fault
you
you.
had to get better.
I don't fault you for 1 second. Almost nobody who sees these incredible things has a camera handy and is able to get it focused and ready and take the pictures. It just doesn't happen. But you really saw that. You saw as many as, 7 lights?
There was 6 or 7 lights, and as
Rotating?
they were going around counterclockwise.
Wow, that's a wow.
Yeah, and if we had stopped and shut off the lights, I think they saw us, and therefore, who expects to see a car out, in the desert on a dirt road, even in that area, and not maybe even a weird ufologist.
Were you close enough to draw the attention of guards?
No, but I'm sure they knew we were there because
I'm sure they did.
This was no extraterrestrial craft. This was something that's ours, because they saw us and we weren't supposed to see it. They went back down.
Yeah, but what do we have that we know about that rotates in the manner you described? Nothing.
Well, we know absolutely nothing, but my God, they don't even tell us that the Aurora exists, and that was on the pages 15 years ago of the magazines with the propulsion system.
That's right.
So they're going to tell us we got that kind of equipment. But wait till I tell you the rest of the story.
Okay, go ahead.
The rest of the story. The following night, we were out and we were getting ready to leave. We were still at the little alien, and boy, the activity was just spectacular. They were dropping flares and targets, and the F-16s were just all over the place. And so we stopped as we were, heading out to the car. Virtually stopped, and we were looking at things through the binoculars and so on. And we saw what we thought were 3 F-16s flying in formation, 2 ahead and 1 trailing, and then another one sort of off to the left. And one of the guys exclaimed, "Gee, that's weird." What's weird? What are you talking about? Well, that big bright star that was just ahead of those 2 F-16s, it just disappeared. So I said, "Oh, really?" So I trained my binoculars up there, and there was this whole patch where you could not see the stars, and it was in the shape of a triangle.
Oh.
And the one to the left that was trailing was an F-16. And what we thought were F-16s, which was the strobing, was on each edge of the triangle.
Oh, you saw exactly what I've seen. I got to see it a whole lot closer, but there's no question about it. We have, or they have, or somebody has a triangle that defies gravity. And if it doesn't defy gravity, then it's a lighter than air craft of some sort. But what I saw looked very metallic, very silent, completely silent. I mean, we have it. Either we have it, or they have it, or we back engineered it, or something. But these triangles are as real as a heart attack.
No, absolutely. This thing was just blocking, and it was huge. I mean, they were at the same height as far as the lights were concerned as what the F-16s were flying. And that altitude, you know, had to be above 30,000 feet. And this thing blocked out a chunk of the stars. You just couldn't see through it, you know. But I didn't see the detail that...
But there were enough stars so that you could actually make out the outline of what was blocked.
Oh, yeah. You know, then we realized these are not three F-16s. This is a triangle. And as it's moving along, you know, and with all the noise from the other guys with their afterburners on, there was no excess noise from this thing, so I would assume it's silent. But again, 4 of us saw it. We all looked through the binoculars and were absolutely flabbergasted. And as I said, there was these 3 Belgian pilots there, and the day that we were leaving, 2 of them were outside talking on their satellite phones, and I was inside with one of them. We were sort of saying goodbye. We got to know him pretty well. And I said, well, you know, we didn't really waste anything coming here because we saw some interesting things. So what'd you see? So I told him, and he was kneeling down on the floor by the table where I was sitting, and he just smiled. He says, well, you know, all the things you hear about Area 51? Yes. Well, he says, they're all true.
They're all true.
They're all true.
Well, coincidentally, Belgium is a place that has had, I don't know how many sightings, tons of them, of these triangular craft, as I'm sure you're aware.
Oh, yes, and he knew about them. Yes, indeed. So I said, you know, I'm just wondering how many countries have this exchange program with Area 51 where they participate in these games. And he says, well, I really don't know. I said, well, I bet you don't see the French Air Force over here. And he just busted out laughing. He said, you will never see the French Air Force here.
Yes, I'm sure not. Boy, isn't that fascinating? So he admitted, he virtually admitted it to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without
They're all
giving
true.
anything
The
away.
stories you hear are all true. Oh, my God.
They're all true, he says.
God, I would so love to know about this. I really would. Well, so congratulations. You had the experience. I'm sure what you just told is going to cause a lot of people to go camp out by that mailbox. Listen, while we're at it, why don't you tell them, a lot of people want to know, if you want to try and observe for yourself, where exactly do you go?
Well, extraterrestrial highway, easy to find. Little alien, you get on the extraterrestrial highway and you can go in either direction. There are dirt roads that head off towards the base. Don't go too far, because you'll come to a gate. Don't go past the gate or you won't be around anymore. So if you want to take a chance and go down that road, you can see really good from there, or you can go in the opposite direction. Now there's one more thing I got to tell you. The following day, during the day, we took off on that road because the day that we saw this saucer-shaped thing, we wanted to see, you know, what kind of a weird hill is this anyways? You know, what's behind it? Where could that thing have gone?
Right.
So we didn't have a 4-wheel drive, but we took the car and we drove as far as we could down this road, and this I did video. And we came across the weirdest set of telephone poles that I've ever seen. They were all high-tension lines, and on the bottom set of wires were, you know, the look like telephone lines. But as we got closer to the edge of this mountain, about every third pole, one of these telephone or communications lines went down the pole and into the ground.
Well, isn't that odd?
Yeah, really, really weird. So maybe, just maybe, the extent of the underground portion of that base comes, way out farther than the restricted area that you're not allowed into.
Dr. Lear, there are a lot of people who think that Area 51 has been abandoned when it comes to these secret projects that we're now talking about and moved up into Utah or to another location. Obviously, that's not entirely so.
No, I mean, that's not, it can't be because, they have more than one place where they have this
Certainly
secret stuff, but you're not going to spend that kind of money on that kind of a base. And
on top of that, they annexed a lot more land. Dr. Lear, over the years, you have removed, I guess, up to 9 objects from human beings. I guess in every instance, was it just a matter of, hey, I've got something in me, or you found something in an X-ray and decided that it should be removed, or how do these things develop?
Well, before I answer your question directly, which I always like to do, time has passed. We have now completed the 12th surgery. The last one was done on September the 23rd.
Okay.
So we've shot ahead. Now the 12 surgeries have produced 11 objects. Now, to the question, is there, how does one know, I guess is what you're asking, if they got something, or does it hurt? Yes, sometimes it hurts. Now, the individuals that we consent to do procedures on have to have some kind of a physical or at least psychological complaint that something is there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to ethically remove.
Pojkvännen hämtarna.
Ja.
Var du med ut
Ja.
till bilen?
Ja.
Hälsar du på killen? Va?
Ja.
Är han trevlig?
Ja. Han är snäll, verkar det som.
Är han snäll emot mig?
Mm.
Han är där va?
Ja.
Till de hem och nu då?
Det vet jag inte. Förmodligen.
Nej. Vad gör du då? Varför sover inte du för?
Nej. Ingen lust.
Ingen lust?
Nej.
Håller det på att regna fortfarande ute? Va?
Jag vet inte. Jag har inte tittat ut.
Jaha. Ja. Men vi hörs ju. Vi kan hörs imorgon då.
Vad ville du då?
Nej, ingenting.
Nej. Ska du sova nu? Ska du sova nu?
Va?
Ska du sova nu?
Ja. Det ska jag. Vem smsar du till då?
Det är datorn som låter.
Men skriver du till då?
Lite meddelanden som jag fått. Svara på.
Va?
Svara på lite meddelanden jag har fått.
Som du har fått idag?
Nej, för länge sedan. Jag har en sida som jag inte har varit inloggad på ett tag.
Jaha. Är det både för tjejer och killar då?
Ja.
Är de söta tjejerna då?
Jo då, kan man väl säga.
De ser bra ut va?
Ja, men jag vill inte ha någon.
Hur har du träffat dem då?
Jag har inte träffat någon av dem.
Nej, men då kommer det sig att de skriver till dig då?
Nej, jag vet inte.
Har du svara på någon vänförfrågan på dem, eller?
Ja.
Eftersom ni skriver till varandra.
Mm.
Så du är bara vänner med tjejerna då?
Ja.
Och killarna?
Ja.
Mhm. Var bor de då? Är det någon här i Norrköping?
Mycket från England.
England?
Mm.
Alla tjejerna? Ingen som bor i Sverige?
Nej, inte än.
of anything from anybody. We just can't go on a fishing expedition.
That's right. Which is it usually, by the way? Is it physical or psychological that brings them to you?
Sometimes 50-50 and sometimes both.
Really?
Sometimes there's a conscious memory of something being put in by some entity, some intelligence from elsewhere, which is the term that I've been using lately. I don't know.
And are they normally correct about where? In other words, if somebody comes to you and says, look, I think I've got an object that's been, well, I was abducted, or I think I was abducted, and there's an object in my arm or my ear, let's say. I don't know. Are they normally correct about where?
Well, in order to do this on a scientific basis, you just have to establish a certain set of criteria and protocols. We don't do anything unless they can prove to me satisfactorily that they have an object, which means that they not only have to suspect where it is, but they have to show me where it is on an X-ray, a CAT scan, or an MRI. Otherwise, it's not my bailiwick.
So it has to happen. In other words, you've got to see the MRI before they even come to you.
Exactly. I don't have anybody come in.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. When they come up with some form of radiological physical evidence, then we can take it from there.
Hi everybody, today is Wednesday, November 20th.
Mycket med avnazifiering att göra. Det tror jag med. Framförallt populär, verkligen. Och en Sundsvallslösning är nog, ska vi säga så här istället då? Att Ukraina ska bli avmilitariserat, neutraliserat och avnazifierat med Sverige som förebild. Sverige ska bli, fast det blir lite ändå, det blir inte riktigt, för det finns inget att vara militariserad där egentligen. Så alltså, men det kanske ska bli någon form av internationell nådpunkt alltså, och lite grann som Sverige kommer kanske bli det också, och det kommer kanske även Ukraina att kunna bli så småningom. Men då krävs det ju så att säga någon form av internationell närvaro för upprätthållandet av den rådande eftersökta ordningen, ska jag väl säga. Sådär, alltså, så blir det ju alltså. Och då måste det vara öppet och transparent. Helst, ja. Och man kan säga så här, det är den plats där det har varit minst öppet transparent och där Investors grunder är hänförliga till. Det är Ljungendalen, alltså Älvdalen där. Där det är svart 6 månader om året. Nej, det var lite överdrivet. Det är mörkt i november alltså. Det lät dramatiskt.
Ja, ja. Så.
Dramaturgi, måste tänka på det.
Ja, måste man göra. Och stadens största son i alla fall, tror jag det är. Jag är inte säker, men jag gillar honom också jättemycket när jag spelar hockey. Och Mats Näslund är en av Sveriges mest framgångsrika hockeyspelare genom tiderna. Nu säljer han sina matchtröjor och OS-medaljer på auktionssajt liksom. Ja, det är ju konstigt. Det hänger grejer i förrådet som man knappt vet om att man har. Säger Mats Näslund. Man kan inte byta jobb som snickare dessutom. Ja, konstigt. Det verkar precis som att... Ja, vad säger han för något? Det verkar inte värt så mycket det här med hockey.
Nej, han verkar inte hänga upp sin identitet på att han har varit en framgångsrik hockeyspelare. Som han varit.
Nej.
Och att det är någonting för det.
Ja.
Och jag menar om han nu åmar sig skit som inte han. Det sätter ingen i familjen och andra vill betala pengar för det.
Men det kanske får som konsekvens att inte riktigt lika många vill bli hockeyproffs.
Det skulle ju kunna vara en... För det är också någonting för när vänta nu vet inte jag är ju svinkastsport så jag känner inte ens namnet, men jag vet inte om han har varit hockeyproffs och sådär. Och om han nu har varit det, varför måste han jobba som snickare nu då? Därför att han vill det, eller har han inga pengar?
Ja, den sidan finns också att han kanske inte har några pengar kvar, han slarvar bort allt. Men det vet inte jag heller. Jag vet att han håller på med hästar en del. Och det behöver väl inte gå. Det behöver väl inte gå.
Så, ja, vad är det?
Ja, jag tyckte det var lite slående där. Faktiskt. Det får man ju säga. Och som sagt, det här med Universal Basic Income. Because of AI då, Joe Rogan. Ja, man vet ju inte. Och ThyssenKrupp, ja. Det är någon som inte kommer ihåg det här. Vi ska inte tala om Bofors och Krupp. För nu ska vi vara snälla. ThyssenKrupp, ja. De höll ihop med Kockums ett tag där, va? Jo, det gjorde de. Ja. Och de passar väl på ThyssenKrupp där de mutar Benjamin Netanyahu, tror jag också. Och man har problem nu med lönsamhetsproblem alltså. Se över sin gröna stålsatsning helt enkelt.
Och då ska man säga, ja, de förbereder sig för att göra så om 11 000 jobb alltså, fram till 20 då va. Hälften av dem ganska omgående då.
Ja.
Det verkar vara genomgående för alla dessa stålkoncerner och grejer att den här gröna omställningen rent ekonomiskt så verkar det vara sådär.
Det verkar bara vara en massa extra jävla kostnader och inte ge någonting annat tillbaka.
Faktiskt.
Kanske hela klimatbluffen är en bluff.
Klimatbluffen är en bluff, tror jag, det vet jag inte.
Annars är ju klimatbluffen en konspirationsteori, men nu kanske klimatbluffen är en bluff på riktigt då.
Skulle du kunna ha
kanske det är en konspirationsteori. Även om det är en konspirationsteori. Ja.
Det är inte lätt att veta i dessa tider.
Nej, det är ju inte det. Ja.
Men hur så verkar det ha någonting med ekonomi att göra.
Ja, det kan man säga.
Ja.
Den Lars Wiese, Socialdemokraterna, med Sverigedemokraterna, är död. Det där var lite märkligt tyckte jag faktiskt.
Ja, det är
det lämnar lite sådär i bak.
Ja, jag visste inte ens att han fanns innan han dog faktiskt. Som det finns längre. Men jag kollade upp han och hans jag tänkte han har varit och inget. Ja, det enda vi får reda på är att han dog lugnt och fritt och tydligen under natten. Inte varför.
Trump vägrar skriva på segerdokumenten här och han vill inte tala om vem som har finansierat. Det är ingenting han behöver göra. Sådär, men...
Nej, det finns inga lagar så att han måste göra. Det kanske är kutym och kanske till och med en tradition och så. Men det finns inga lagar.
Han bryr sig inte om några lagar, han håller sig till konstitutionen. Ska det vara skitsvårt att förstå?
Ja, konstigt.
Men nej, det ska gnällas så in i helvete i media över det, över att han håller sig till konstitutionen.
Och Ryssland godkänner talibanerna nu helt plötsligt. Ja, vem vet? Det var ju rätt lång tid det här afghanskriget höll på. Det blev ju rätt mycket så att säga civila umbäranden som en konsekvens av det här.
En del ont blod.
Ja, precis. Och frågan var väl kanske om man skulle få någon ordning på det där, så var man nästan tvungen att hålla människor i häradstukt och förmaning. Jag tror att det är en förutsättning för att de här knarkhandlarna inte ska få överhanden. Det finns inte så många andra sätt att göra det på när man väl blivit utsatt för det där på det sätt som skedde där.
Nej, det är ju så.
Ja. Ja. Ja, vad konstigt allting är alltså. Och ja, Scott Ritter han påstår att det här allt mer aggressiva beteendet tvingar Ryssland att svara. Och då kommer vi ha,
själva poängen med det här.
Provocera upp.
Samtidigt då som man säger att det är Ryssland som eskalerar. Hela världen säger att nej, det är inte.
Ja.
Men det är klart, de invaderade ju Ukraina fullskaligt 2022.
Ja.
Och gjorde de krig 2014 också. Det får man inte glömma som en god svensk.
Ja. Och det här kriget måste ju alltså komma igång innan Donald Trump svärs in. För sen blir det liksom inte samma opinionsbildningsmässiga effekter på utvecklingen annars. Nej. Och sådär komma igång, det är ju liksom det är på randen till avgrunden dit det här måste alltså. Vi måste ha vårt corner case alltså. Och
fånga befolkningarnas uppmärksamhet helt enkelt. Vi kan inte lämna över en
Hörni, Ukraina. Sverige har ju en lång historia i Ukraina. Och det var ju faktiskt så en dag. Gesran skriver så här: Future proves past. Ryska medier. Bildt kan bli minister i Ukraina. Ja. Det var ju så. 2016. Så tyckte man att det var en god idé. Bildt var alltså föreslagen som att bli minister i Ukraina. Vi hade ju 3 särskilda sändebud. Bildt, Eliasson och Persson. Göran Persson. Och Eliasson. Ja. Och de var ju nere där 2014. Och det var ju tur ju. De hjälpte till med demokratiutveckling och ekonomiutveckling. Det är därför det inte är någon fattigdom där. Ingenting överhuvudtaget. Undrar om det var som skrev där, nu kom det inte ens med. Det var för långt. Jag tror att det var G-strand eller Cozy Pepper som delar det här. Till den sista ukrainaren är Sveriges melodi. Vårt militärindustriella komplex måste matas och bankernas likviditetsförsörjas. Det här låter som G-strand. Vem hade världens första riksbank? Och vem kan kontrollera det militärindustriella komplexet nu igen? Paul Jonsson, vi stödjer inte Ja, det kan vara Cozy Pepper här också. Vi stödjer inte Trumps Ukraina-plan. Försvarsminister Paul Jonsson, Moderaterna, sågar Trumps fredsplan för Ukraina. Det är inte någonting vi stödjer. Nej. Säger då Jonsson. Ni vet han som sitter på missilen bara. Så det är därför han har sån himla fin frisyr. Han sitter på en missil i snabb takt. Enligt planen ska Ukraina få säkerhetsgarantier, men inte tillåtas att bli EU eller NATO-medlem. Alla NATO-länder har slagit fast att Ukraina har rätt att bli allierad och landet ska fatta sina egna säkerhetspolitiska beslut, slår Jonsson fast. Roland skriver, den SD-stödda Tidöregeringen är helt sjuk. Ja, så är det Roland X vidare. Sverige vill etablera närvaro i Ukraina, går från donation till produktion. Regeringen har gett FMV i uppdrag att se över möjligheten att etablera närvaro i Ukraina från och med hösten 2024. Vi kommer gå från donation av försvarsmaterial till Försvarsmaktens lager till produktion av nyproducerad försvarsmaterial så att Ukraina har tillträde till ny försvarsmaterial. Enligt regeringen blir FMVs roll framåt att skaffa nytt material till Ukraina. Så hela målet med FMV, det är då man skickar allt till Ukraina och sen och sen ska man bygga upp landets upphandlingsmyndighet. Det var ju det MSB gjorde i Afghanistan också. Det känns ju väldigt stabilt ju. Härligt. Lära dem Stockholmsbyråkrati. Jag tror inte att det är det Ukraina behöver. Ukraina har ju varit gisslan åt den djupa staten. Wallenberg, Sverige, USA, väst. Det har varit en tvättmaskin. Det har varit en samordningscentral för barnfabriker och biolab och så vidare. Sverige skickar stridsbåt 90, 7,1 miljarder. 15 paketet ses som en viktig signal till Ukraina inför årsdagen av krigsutbrottet om att svenskt stöd ska fortsätta. En signal till Ryssland om att Sverige inte kommer svika det krigsdrabbade landet. Och det här är någon artikel, jag får ta det lite för vad det är, men det är ganska intressant. USA-amerikanska företag äger idag 17 av de 16 miljoner hektar som utgör landet i Ukraina. 28% av landets yta ägs alltså av USA. Här har vi till exempel Ikea, kommer ni ihåg det? De tog ju bara högg ner skog helt enkelt, som de inte ägde. Bara snodde skogen. Brydde sig inte alls om vem som ägde marken eller något sånt ju. Det är Ikea, det är därför vi har billiga möbler där. Och så billiga är de inte. Men det är stöldgods av naturresurser från bland annat Ukraina. Hemskt. Ägarna är kända företag som Cargill, DuPont och Monsanto. Bakom vilka investmentfonder döljer sig. Det verkar i skuggan av de kända namnen och förfogar över tusentals miljarder dollar, skriver Zeitung. Det är Arbeit som tittat närmare på hur USAs kapitalister köper upp Ukraina. Vi har ju Hunter Biden också, Joe Biden. Vi har Pelosi. Vi har John Kerry. Både de och deras barn. Jag har glömt dem, men jag förstår. Det är de här.
Monsanto.
Köpta politikerna som egentligen...
Vad betyder det? Är det ett namn eller är det ett ord eller vad är det för något?
Det är träsket. För att exemplifiera läget kan man ta exemplet Italien, där jordbruksarealen är 12,7 miljoner hektar. 3 USA-företag har följaktligen nu mer jordbruksland bara i Ukraina än vad Italien har i sin helhet. Jordbruksmarken som inte fick säljas såldes ändå till USA. Historien bakom detta är komplex. Efter Sovjetunionens upplösning fick bönderna som tidigare arbetat i kollektivjordbruken arrendera marken och fortsätta att bruka den. Så småningom överfördes denna mark helt och hållet som privategendom till dessa bönder. Men från och med 2001 förbjöds emellertid köp och försäljning. Ett tillstånd som höll i sig till 2021. De nyblivna markägarna kunde nu bara välja mellan att fortsätta bruka jorden som småbönder eller arrendera ut den till aktörer för $150 per hektar och år. Dessa aktörer blev i verkligheten stora markägare eller rent av monopolföretag inom jordbruket. En del av den oligarki som står i landets ledning. Debatten om huruvida marken faktiskt skulle få säljas och därtill till utländska bolag blev allt mera högljudd. Folkflertalet var emot utförsäljning av jordbruksmarken i olika former och Zelenskyj uttryckte sig ljudligt till deras fördel.
Okej, då förstår
Men slutligen bestämde den internationella valutafonden som är den instans som lånat ut mest pengar till Ukraina att avskaffandet av köp- och säljförbudet var en förutsättning för ett nytt kreditpaket till Ukraina. Och detta genomfördes av Ukrainas regering alldeles oavsett tidigare uttalanden och oavsett folkviljan. Men säger inte de att det är demokrati i Ukraina? Men här har folket alltså ingenting att säga till om. Sedan dess har de nämnda aktörerna kunnat sälja marken till vem de vill. Inklusive till utländska investerare. Och därmed ägs alltså Ukrainas jord till stora delar av USA. Inte bara USA. BlackRock som återuppbyggnadskoordinator. Men jordbruket är inte allt. Sedermera har det US-amerikanska bolaget BlackRock seglat upp som Zelenskyj-regeringens rådgivare på återuppbyggnaden av Ukraina och koordinator för densamma. Vilket bland annat innebär att koncentrera och styra investeringar till de viktigaste delarna av den ukrainska ekonomin. BlackRock har hemma i USA fått dåligt rykte eftersom att man använder sitt kapital för att köpa upp medelklassen och arbetarklassens hus och driva upp priserna på fastighetsmarknaden. Något som ökar profiten för bolaget och sedan lång tid investerat i fastigheter och tränger undan fattigare delar av befolkningen från bostadsmarknaden. Man kan se det så här. BlackRock betalas av den ukrainska regeringen med skattebetalarnas bidragspengar från USA och EU för att utveckla en plan som garanterar företagets kommande investeringar i Ukraina. Dessa investeringar ska göras med pengar som har tjänat på de ökade bostadspriserna, inte precis ett recept för fred i närtid i Ukraina. Nej, precis, för fred, det var ju ingenting som man ville ha. Det motsätter sig Sverige. Absolut, det är ingenting som Sverige vill ha. Och vi ska då skicka allt. Vi ska inte bara skicka vårt försvarsmaterial och pengar och så, utan vi ska bygga upp det där. Vi flyttar Sverige helt enkelt till Ukraina. Det gör vi. Det låter skitbra. Inte precis ett recept för fred i närtid i Ukraina. Där allt finns att vinna på fortsatt krig och fortsatta investeringsmöjligheter för återuppbyggnad. För att nu inte tala om det monstruöst stora och rika företaget också involverat i militärindustrin som tjänar pengar på vapenleveranser till Ukraina. Den som eventuellt tvivlar på Ukrainas roll som västimperialismens front under konflikten med det ryska imperialistiska blocket kan nu lägga tvivlen till ro. Ett USA-ägt Ukraina är nu på bästa väg att ta form för att bedriva USA-NATO.
Okej, du blir skuggbannad. Det var intressant.
Urban Bedi säger bara en karta för vilka länder USA har ingripit genom sin historia.
Nice. Trevligt. Du är välkommen. Det blir trevligt.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
And we're up.
Exciting times, exciting times.
It's a good time to be a conspiracy theorist.
It's a good time to be a conspiracy theorist. It's a great time to be a comedian. These are the good days, the all or nothing days.
Yeah, these are the good days until the election, then who the fuck knows what happens.
Just fast forward to it.
Did you see this thing that the Biden administration pushed through? This new martial law thing?
Yeah.
This is very disturbing. Jamie, please Google this so we can find out what the actual law states. But it's DoD Directive 5240.01, giving the Pentagon power for the first time in history to use lethal force to kill Americans on U.S. soil who protest government policies.
What are they expecting?
5250.01, sounds right?
Is that what it is? Did I tell you what it is? I'm sorry. 5240.01. DoD directive. This is from RFK Jr. Posted this on Twitter, and I'm finding out about it because people are blowing me up about it. That's fucking terrifying. That is a terrifying thing to push through for the first time in U.S. history, giving the military the ability to shoot and kill American citizens.
That's crazy too. It's interesting because, you know, with the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act and stuff like that, it's almost like they kind of, in a weird way, just make it legal what they're already doing. If you use
what is that? The Smith Modernization Act?
The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act that Obama pushed through, which basically made it so it was legal for the U.S. government to use propaganda against its citizens, which they were already doing in different ways through CIA and all that stuff. So it's not like we can legally do it. You can't sue us now.
How crazy is it that it's legal to lie?
How crazy
is that? For the government to not just legally lie, but they can concoct completely fabricated stories just to push a narrative if they decide that it's in the best interest of national security or whatever.
To just manipulate energy in your mind and all that stuff to get you to believe certain things. And we need to bring back shame. That's my opinion.
Well, they have none. It's not going to work. You can't bring back shame to lizard people.
Yeah, well, they can't. They can't feel anything. It's in their reptilian brains, which is some weird shit going on right now with that.
It's weird because, like, you know that David Icke stuff where he said they're all lizard people? I don't think they're really lizard people. I don't think they're really shapeshifters. But they do behave in a reptilian way, like a corporation does, like a psychopath.
I don't know if they're actual reptilians, dude, but there is something going on that they are a group of people because they're all related, which is very weird. If you you go back far enough, they're all related. Like if you study Obama and Bush, right? You know, because I remember when Obama was running, I was like, oh, change, it's going to be change.
Hope and change.
Hope and change. And then you start studying like the Bushes and the Obamas, and their first ancestor, their common ancestor is a Hinckley, dude. Right? And you go,
like John Hinckley, the guy who kept trying to kill
100%.
What?
Yes, their common ancestor is a Hinckley. And then when you realize that
Hinckley was related to Obama and Bush?
And related to the Bushes had dinner with the Hinkleys the night before Reagan got shot. And here's the craziest thing.
What?
Yeah. Is that crazy?
Do you think, okay, I always thought Hinckley was a lone nut that was infatuated with Jodie Foster. No,
dude. And there's actually interviews, dude, where he said, Uncle George told me to do it.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
Didn't they just let him out?
Yeah, and now he's doing like plain and coffee beans because he's put out an album or something like that. he's touring off it. But that's a crazy thing.
Barack Obama, the 10th cousin once removed of George W. Bush, through Samuel Hinckley of Cape Cod. Holy shit.
It's so crazy.
I've never gone down the Hinckley rabbit hole. So John Hinckley, the guy who killed, or shot rather, Reagan, what was his deal? Was he
was like
MK Ultra?
Yeah, he was a little off. He was like the one family member that was a little off.
A little off.
Here's the craziest thing about that thing. That the Hinckley that shoots at Reagan, he's the first one that can use the I'm mentally not capable of defending myself. I'm too mentally ill. What's the law where you can where you
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So because right around then, John Lennon was also getting like assassinated, and his killer tried to use that I'm not mentally capable.
Who killed John Lennon? Do we remember?
What was his name? What was it, dude? And I watched that whole story.
Is there a rabbit hole to go down on that one too?
That's a crazy story too, because like we had this kind of there's two eras of like assassinations where like everybody was getting assassinated, or they were tempted.
Chapman, Mark David Chapman, shot and killed Lennon. Now, is he an MK Ultra guy too?
Bro,
Do you think?
So he had that. What book did he have? On the Rye, what is it called?
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
That's some NK Ultra shit right there.
He's still alive?
Is he still alive?
69.